Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization, doing great stuff all around the state. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the week that was on Deadline Detroit. I'm Craig Fahle. Glad to have you with me as I hope you do every single Friday. And I'm really excited to have with me once again my good friends Allan Lengel. Thank you very much for being here from Deadline
Thanks
Detroit.
for having me.
Nancy Derringer from Deadline Detroit in the coveted
bimbo chair.
you like the name? I do not, but I'll let you own that.
It's a Fox News term.
There you go.
They always put the girl closest to the camera, but she has to have
So should I change your name to Gretchen?
I don't have that.
So I'm going to start calling you Gretchen Derringer.
Yeah,
that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And our friend returning, the special guest star today, Joel Sklar, local attorney. He's been on the program a few times, and he just decided to do this morning, so he has no idea what's coming.
None.
But we're excited to have you here, sir. Thank you very much for being back.
It's a pleasure to be invited, and I appreciate it enormously.
By the way, I almost was on Fox News.
Really?
I was invited.
Well, please tell the story.
When I was at the Washington Post, I was invited. There was a story about a prosecutor who was found dead in Maryland, and I'd covered it for a while, and there were some developments, and so they invited me on the show for the Greta Van Sus.
I was on with Greta myself, very similar circumstance.
But she wasn't. There was a sub. So I get there. They pick me up in a Lincoln Navigator
town car.
Yeah. And they pick me up. They take me over there, and I'm not going on until maybe 9 o'clock. And I get there maybe 7:30. They're putting all the makeup on.
How was the green room? Good,
yeah,
good Good snacks?
No.
Okay.
No good snacks.
Okay.
And so
this matters to Allan Lengel, by the way.
Oh yes, a nosh. Nosh is number one. And so we're sitting there, and there was a plane. Meanwhile, on air is an incident where a plane in Boston, where the wheels wouldn't come down, so it was circling around, and they were making a big drama out of it. And then it finally lands, and everything's okay. So they just keep getting one expert after another going, "Oh my God, this is terrible," and they're going, "It's not really that big of a deal. It happens more than you think," and all that kind of stuff. So I'm in the studio. They've got the headphone on now, and I'm waiting to go on. And they're like, "Allan, we're going to go a little bit more into the segment about this plane. Are you okay waiting?" And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And so then about 15 minutes later, they go, "Allan, are you okay? We're still doing the plane thing." And I say to him, I go, "What are you guys doing?" I said, "Every person I hear says it's not a big deal. Why are you making such a big deal out of it?"
Because it's a plane. I say let them crash. Isn't that the line from
And then
Airplane?
finally they go, "Allan, we're going to have to cancel you. We're continuing on with the plane." And so I walk out into the newsroom there, and they go, "We're really sorry, but could you come back tomorrow?" And I go, "No."
Lose my number.
And then I did go in the limo, and it did take me home.
Oh, well, there you go.
Well, there you go.
I tipped the guy $10, so it really wasn't
Oh,
free.
my God.
That's not your responsibility.
You're such a softie.
I know.
Really?
He was getting paid by
I was a
Fox.
suspect briefly in the murder, but that would have been like, my God. What?
All right, are we ready to talk about the news?
Let's go.
Suck up all the air with my Fox story.
Now, here's the question. Do we want the funny Trump story or the really serious Trump story first? Show of hands, everybody.
Well, I really can't tell the difference anymore.
Well, okay.
Whatever you want to go with this foul.
Well, let's go with a little humor first, because we did the dramatic reading last week.
Yes,
I need to read this one. He was speaking at a rally in New Mexico, and of course trying to rally support from Latino voters. And here's what he said. Here's the quote. He was talking about a guy named Stephen Cortez, who used to be a political consultant, shortly worked for Trump, does some work for CNN, and apparently Trump says he fired him, but there's no evidence to suggest that actually happened. But here's what he said. And you tell me if you understand what the hell he is talking about here. He said, "He happens to be Hispanic. He happens to be Hispanic, but I've never quite figured it out because he looks more like a wasp than I do. Nobody loves the Hispanics more. What do you like more, the country or the Hispanics?" He says the country. I don't know. I may have to go for the Hispanics, to be honest with you. We got a lot of Hispanics. We love our Hispanics.
Wow.
All right.
The guy, the most pandering
Grandpa
human being on earth.
and Grandpa is sundowning again.
Well, what was he?
Yeah.
What was he?
Sundown.
Anybody? Any idea what he was talking about?
I can't understand
there?
any of that.
So there's like a loyalty question in there. What does he
Yeah.
love more, the country or the Hispanics?
Or the Hispanics.
Was he talking about Cortez? And he's saying,
Yeah.
I guess I'd have to go with the Hispanics. So
Right.
is he saying that he loves the Hispanics more than the
Right.
country?
Yeah.
I don't know. Or
Why does there have to be a choice?
Does it
Why do
matter?
they have to be separate from the country? They're Americans.
Could be like at a Jewish rally. Hey, what do you like being Jewish more? Or you love America? Hey, what do you like Israel more? Or do you like?
Hey, he's been counting on people loving Israel more than the United States based
Right.
on his policy and thinking that he should get the Jewish vote. And how dare these
Right.
people?
Disloyal.
For moving the embassy.
Right.
Disloyalty
You know,
question.
For
So
doing one
basically,
thing, moving the embassy.
Right.
I mean, this is just a long line of
Yeah.
really sort of troubling commentary about. It's like the first time he ever saw somebody. He's
Is
like, wow.
sundowning.
But to make that demarcation, that delineation,
Yeah.
is frightening, quite frankly.
I just love that quote. I was reading that this morning. I'm like, that is the weirdest thing I've seen. I saw it on video the other day.
I like
and
it.
I was like,
I like that he's pressing people to make them think. It's like, what do you like better, crowd? Smooth peanut butter or crunchy?
That's right.
Huh? I mean, make them people
Question
think.
for the ages.
Yeah.
You know?
It
But
really
I
is.
love the part where he's like, well, he looks more like a wasp than I do. As somebody who
Right.
has significant waspish tendencies, I've never really sort of
No.
looked at it that way. But
And I don't see any wasp in Donald Trump either. He's a pretender.
well,
So.
I don't know. Our Oompa
How,
Loompas
how would you
wasps.
categorize him?
He's an Araviste, a nouveau riche Bulgarian.
Yeah,
So,
that's
There
fair.
you go.
I mean, I think of wasps as being, they're white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. First of all, I guess a German. That's close enough to Saxony. But he's a. I think of those people as being a little more refined. The Grosse Pointe Yacht Club people. But we all
money.
probably voted for that guy anyway. So.
All right, let's get to the more serious stuff this
Please,
week. Well, there's a
let's.
couple of different aspects that we need to get to, but this one, we don't know all the details yet about what happened between the president and the leaders in Ukraine. A government whistleblower, said he was very, very concerned about the content of a phone conversation in which a quote-unquote promise was made. Now, what people are speculating on right now is that there was some sort of a deal that he was making to suggest that if you look into Joe Biden's son's relationship and you get some dirt on Joe Biden, maybe we'll release the aid that we promised you.
Yeah.
And if,
pro quo.
If that is the case, that is an impeachable offense. Rudy Giuliani last night on CNN just basically melted down.
Yeah.
When
His
Chris
dentures
Cuomo,
were falling out.
Chris
It was really
Cuomo-
something.
Chris Cuomo asked him point blank, "Did you ask about Joe Biden?" "No, I didn't." And then 30 seconds later, the same. "Well, of course I did." It was like Jack Nicholson in that movie, you know?
You can't handle the truth.
Well, you're
Right,
damn
yeah.
right. I ordered the code red. I mean, that's kind of what we got last night. This is pretty serious stuff. We wrote about it on Deadline Detroit this morning. Barb McQuaid was on TV last night saying that's kind of like extortion.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not sure what's going to happen is this, but I
It
have a
was
feeling that this is just the first layer of this onion that has been peeled back.
She was talking about she was on MSNBC late last night, and she was talking about the Russian investigation, and she says, well, that doesn't seem to resonate so much with the public. She says, but extortion's a pretty much a bread and butter kind of crime that people can understand. And so she thinks that might resonate more. But, the Teflon Don, look, John Gotti,
right.
They called him the Teflon Don. Eventually, I think it was at the fourth trial, they finally convicted him. And, I always say Teflon, I know my Teflon pans, eventually the Teflon
wears out. Yeah.
And I think
Well, the fact that the Inspector General, has deep concerns about this kind of stuff, and the Justice Department apparently is blocking Congress from getting to see it.
That's disturbing as hell.
Well, and what's the rationale for that? They don't have one, because if the IG has a report like this, and it is supposed to be passed on, to
it's
congressional-
mandatory. It's a ministerial obligation that has to happen. It's not discretionary.
And
See,
what's
this
their
is why we
timeline?
this is why we have a lawyer on the program.
Well, listen,
today.
those fine distinctions, but really, it's simply an obligation of passing on that information to Congress, who has the oversight over the president for just this issue. It's frightening that the checks and balances may not work. I mean,
They're basically just defying it. They're just
They
saying, "Screw
are.
you! I'm not going to do it."
But-
And they know that nobody in Congress is going
to push it, and my
Right.
concern is also that ultimately the courts won't enforce it. I mean, that's
That's
the
the
danger.
whole point of packing the courts.
But-
With these Federalist Society.
That's why these are
people.
all in their own. They're like mini constitutional crises, and they accumulate. But to what end? I'm not sure.
Right.
For me, it terrifies the hell out of me because I don't see the checks and balances working because
Nope.
they're not co-equal branches anymore. Apparently,
Well, the thing is, they know that this is going to get out. And so they've already pivoted to this, if I did something, so what? I can do whatever I want. This
I'm the
President Trump
president.
said this morning. He said that the allegations against him were lodged by a, quote, partisan intelligence official, which you got to love. The intelligence agencies are just at their wits' end with this guy right now. but a partisan intelligence official. And then he said that any exchanges with world leaders are always appropriate by the president. And then he said, this is what he told reporters in the Oval Office today. He said, it doesn't matter what I discussed with the foreign leader, but went on to say that somebody ought to look into Joe Biden's statement. So, I mean, you know, he's
the
basically
lawless
admitting
president.
that he did it.
Right.
This is a real problem. And if you're... Nancy Pelosi can't ignore this stuff. She's been trying to avoid the impeachment thing for a long time. I'm not sure she's going to be able to avoid it anymore.
I hope not.
This is so much worse than anything that was done.
I think it's Nancy Pelosi keeps looking at the political calculations here. Is this
Right.
good for the 2020? And at some point, look, the guy keeps violating, stepping over the line. At some point, you just have to not care about the political consequences. Look, if he gets elected again because of that reason that they went after him for breaking the law, then so be it.
But
that's up to the American people
I think
to decide.
the greater danger is by doing nothing and he gets reelected, then what do you do? I mean, there's a huge danger in
exactly.
doing nothing
Right.
and believing that, well, he's going to lose. I don't buy that at all. And it terrifies me that if you do nothing, then all you're doing is giving license for him to do more and more. And what are you going to say? Well, now, the second term, now we're going to do something? No,
Right.
If there's a violation of law, you would force it.
Stop
Right.
acting like a battered spouse. And,
Right,
seriously.
do your job.
Right.
Step
exactly.
up, whatever the legal, the political ramifications
Right.
are, they are. But this is treachery.
You know,
This is treasonous.
I had somebody,
true.
a former federal law enforcement official who I'm friends with on Facebook, was trying to explain to me why that people who voted for Trump, which he did, feel that the Democrats are trying to take that right away from them, that they duly elected him and now they're trying to undo it. And he tried to explain that to me, and that the Democrats are trying to steal the presidency. And I said, well, what about Clinton? I mean, the same thing happened there where they tried to impeach Clinton.
Who would become president if if Trump were to be removed from office?
Mike Pence.
Yeah. So how are we stealing the presidency?
Right.
How are
stay with the same party.
Right. Exactly. So yeah.
Well, either way, that was one of this is going
It's
to
very bad.
unfold over the next few days. I have a feeling we're going to learn a lot more pretty quickly. Anytime you have the Washington Post and the New York Times duking it out for a scoop like this,
it's a good one.
You know, a lot of people are working their sources now to
Right,
find this stuff
for
out.
sure.
And there was a closed door meeting in Congress yesterday. Somebody's going to leak out something that happened there, some aide somewhere to find out what they know.
Well, did Coates
And that's where I
resign
think
a
a
few
lot of-
days before or after this? I thought there was a relationship
I was
in
just gonna
timing with
say,
Dan Coates, and
I
maybe
think
that's
maybe Dan, I wonder if Dan Coates was a whistleblower.
right. That was some speculation because there was a timing issue with his resignation coming around. I thought this
Around the same
around
time.
the same time, but who knows? Because who
Right.
knows? But my God,
I wish there's no future for the Republican Party if they attach themselves to this, unguided missile, and it augers in somewhere. I just don't see how they're going to recover from something.
I don't know how they don't stay in lockstep with Trump. at this point. I don't
Except
know.
that they are perfectly happy with the idea of minority rule in this
Yeah,
country.
I mean, I don't see them breaking at all, no matter how
Yeah.
great the offense, which is what is
Right.
shocking and my God, eye-opening. But that's what's happened historically so far.
Two other Trump things that I want to get to before we wrap up on Trump this week, because there's probably about six more that I could get
Trump
to. But,
watch.
Let's get
Hey, I had anybody else have a problem with the president saying that they were going to wait to respond to the bombing of the Saudi oil fields by saying, well, we're going to let them tell us what to do on this one, and that the U.S. might be acting on behalf of Saudi Arabia in the region?
Apparently, you can hire the United States Armed Forces. I didn't know.
Well,
As long as you pay cash, you
I
can
think
hire them.
I think Saudi Arabia has used the U.S. for a long, long time.
Of course they
to
have.
Of course
protect
they
its
have.
interests, and the U.S. says, "Yeah, you've got oil, we'll protect you. If you guys don't have oil, bye bye."
But you better
They
pay cash.
He said they pay cash.
Yeah.
But the fact is that he was going to wait to see what MBS wanted to do before he decided whether or not they were going to retaliate. They're still trying to figure out exactly where this thing came from. They have a pretty good idea, but they're not sure. I mean, we're on the brink of potential conflict
sure.
with Iran again.
Right.
This seems to be a regularly occurring thing with this president. But just the deference to Saudi Arabia is something that is really shocking to me.
Well, gee, maybe there's some other things that are going on between Trump and the Saudis than what we know. I mean, that's he's animated by so many things that we think we know.
Yeah.
And I think we're relatively certain of. And this is yet another one. I mean, that's why there's so much conflict and so much confusion. But if allowing the Saudis to dictate American foreign policy or use of armed forces, that's insane.
One of the worst countries in the world.
Yeah, truly one of the worst countries.
Yeah.
With Khashoggi, I mean, my God, what is...
Mohammed Bonesaw.
Yeah,
and,
the
you know.
Saudis are such a duplicitous country. I mean, it's what our relationship with them is so screwed up. It's I mean, it's interesting. The Iranians. I mean, the U.S. is probably going to use Israel as a surrogate to go in and bomb.
Maybe not.
And why do you say that?
Because there's some pretty significant changes going on in Israeli leadership right now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
Netanyahu lost. I
Right.
mean, and it's official. He doesn't have the coalition. He doesn't have it. He's out.
Yeah.
And we have no idea what's
Well, I would
grants,
say
right?
up till
Grants.
now.
Grants?
Up till now, I
Grants.
think there was plans because I think in Syria, from what a good source of mine told me, that U.S. was providing information to the Israelis, and the Israelis went into Syria to bomb some areas there. So there's a lot of stuff working in tandem together there, or it has been at least
It was
with Netanyahu. And
it was amazing how quickly the president threw Netanyahu under the bus the other day, though, when he just said, "Hey, our relationship with Israel, not the guy." That's why you campaign so hard for him, and try to get everybody and to
Won't
pump
be
money into
associated
that
with
race.
anybody wwho loses. It's their
Yeah,
self-reflection.
loser.
When
But-
loser is done.
Yeah.
Well,
Dead to me.
I was going to bring that up a little bit just because I think this is a pretty significant change in leadership in that country and potentially direction in terms of what they do with peace talks and everything else. We don't know. I mean, Netanyahu's been there for quite a while.
The longest serving, right?
Yeah.
I would say, interestingly, my cousins in Israel who are pretty liberal, I got into a little discussion about the moving of the embassy because I think it doesn't do anything to secure Israel in any way, but they seem to think that they're an autonomous nation. They should be able to make a determination where embassies go. And I was surprised, although my cousin makes fun. He says, "Yeah, Netanyahu. He goes, he's our Trump." So they make fun of Trump, but at the same time, I think that scored big points in Israel. Unfortunately.
All right. Well, okay. One more thing that I want to talk about with the president here. He decides that he wants to do something to address the homeless crisis in California.
Yeah, put him in concentration camps.
He basically talked about renovating an old FAA facility to basically round up homeless people and house them there to figure out what to do with it. Now, last I checked, I mean, I don't think there's a crime against being homeless. I don't think it's a crime.
No.
But
don't
he's
think
going to
so.
raise these tent camps that are popping up in certain parts of California, and cost of living there is obviously very high.
And along the border. Oh, you're talking about the homeless tank.
The homeless,
Yeah,
yes.
right, yeah.
So he's talking about taking government facilities and rounding up the homeless in Los Angeles and San Francisco and taking them to this repurposed government facility to let them stay there till they can figure out what to do. Now, when you listen to him,
Are they going to be confined there?
we don't know. We're not sure. They haven't really done it.
They're going to be concentrated there
we're supposed
in
to hear
this camp-like situation.
leave?
We're supposed to hear a plan early next week from the Trump administration as to what they're going to do about this. But he's not doing this because he thinks that, homelessness is something that needs to be addressed. There's no discussion about like Section 8 vouchers or housing options.
Mental health, all that stuff.
It's all
that we
about how
talk-
some
we
business
care about.
people have to see them, and therefore they're creating a problem. And he said people in droves are leaving the country because of the homeless problem in the United States.
I
Right.
didn't realize we had
That's-
that issue.
I didn't
I
realize
thought
it either,
people
'cause
coming in was his issue, not people leaving. I was
they already
unaware.
have a prototype for that type of camp. They just use the immigration camps and
Like I
lock
said,
people
Put 'em
up.
in cages.
concentrated
Crazy.
in
Yes.
a camp.
But isn't
So
that really
there.
a state issue? I mean, isn't that a local issue to deal with the housing?
Right, homeless is
Right.
not really a federal
Right. I mean, isn't
issue.
it for people in San Francisco and LA and wherever in California to deal with that issue?
It's really even more so a local.
It's super
a
local.
City.
Sure.
Right.
It's a city issue, not even a general
So I'm not sure
state
what the
issue. Every
Fed's
city-
doing, what authority he thinks he has to, to even get involved in it.
He's the president, damn it. He's allowed to do
can do
whatever he
anything.
wants.
He's the
He's
president.
king.
Yeah.
He's the president of Los Angeles. So.
Well,
That said, the homeless problem on the West Coast is very bad, and particularly in Los Angeles.
Well, because it's an easy place. I lived in Portland, Oregon.
The temperature-
and
the
Burnside,
climate.
Right, there's nowhere-
Burnside was Skid Row, and I mean it
Yeah.
was such a the the temperatures were so mild that you just had homeless people hanging out there. I mean, and
so what you're saying is maybe if we relocated them to Detroit in say January, we might be able to like motivate some of them to kind of make something of themselves.
Yes, I agree.
What a great idea.
Paul checks in on Facebook and says modern day Hoovervilles.
Yeah,
I mean, that's sort of what's
exactly.
being proposed here. And like I said, I'm going to wait for the details, but his rationale for doing it is just completely off the chain. I mean, this isn't about compassion for somebody's that's struggling. This is about, I don't want to see them.
Right.
I don't want them in my line of sight. We're going to do something
Well,
about
and
this problem.
he says stuff like, they're blocking the entrance, and these people have paid for prestige. That's like, if you have paid for prestige, whether it's in the tacky high-rise tower that Trump built or somewhere else, your rights trump everyone else's.
Well,
so to speak. Yeah.
So to speak. Yeah.
All right, all right.
we
Well,
go.
let's, like I said, we could do this for a long time.
I know.
Let's go to Michigan here. General Motors strike.
Yep.
We're in day 5 now. They've been talking all the way through, but this one looks like it might last a little while. GM took a pretty bold move the other day by cutting off everybody's health care right off the bat.
That was
Now-
aggressive.
It was like a nuclear option.
That's
right
aggressive.
right off the bat.
Now, my husband, the autos editor for
Yes.
another publication, would differ with
can
that.
name
He
that
said this
publication.
happens. He said this happens every strike like this. He said
It's
when
been a
the
long
contract,
time since we had one, so
I know.
we
so
forget.
when the contract expires, you are no longer contractually obligated to provide people with salary or benefits, and the union picks up the cost for that. Yeah. So that's, I mean, you could say they should keep doing it. It's blah blah blah, but apparently this happens for every significant.
Well, like I said, they are
I
still
was
talking.
on strike at the news, and they
For a long
did not-
time.
Yeah, for a long 19 months.
Did they cover your health care?
They did not.
Of course. That's so it's
you get
standard
roughed up?
operating procedure.
A little roughed up.
I'm trying to remember. I think the
The cops little, hey there.
the healthcare was
Hey, buddy,
through
get outta here.
through I think
No
through
union.
through the union, or I can't remember how that was done, but it was not, the company was certainly not
Right.
doing anything for us.
Right. So cutting off health care, my point is, it's not
Yeah.
that big of a deal.
Yeah.
It just
Because
sounds like
because
a big
the health care is going to be
basically
picked
it's
up.
Cobra.
Right.
They're not
You know,
really
you
without
have-
anything.
it's
You
gonna
have
be-
Cobra, and I think through the strike, either I can't remember, it was
Exactly.
supplemented or it's cheap or whatever, but you can continue on with your health.
Yeah,
care.
well, but yes, because when you're not
Anyone
earning
can-
money, the one thing you can afford is Cobra.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
I know.
It's like,
Well,
Cobra's insane.
Cobra's expensive, but I think
That'd be
either the
$1,700
union
a month.
supplemented.
Well, the
Thank you.
union
The
could
union
probably dip
supplemented
into
or-
the
yeah.
Ruth's Chris Steakhouse for union leaders
Right.
fund,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
that's probably good.
What
for
about
something.
the cloud of corruption that governs the leadership? I mean, isn't that this is just bizarre to have
It's a
these
terrible time.
negotiations
It's a terrible
when you
time.
can't trust the leadership
well, and
or
one of the
there's
people
issues?
who's actually
It's a terrible time for the strike to happen.
under investigation, been indicted, has actually been sitting in on some of the talks,
Yeah.
and I mean that's not
I know.
that's
That
not going
is-
Well,
over
including the president.
Yeah, I mean,
the
I know.
president also, who has not been indicted, but who's certainly
Been searched.
under investigation. Yeah, it's a terrible time, and I was going to write a column about how outraged and ashamed I am of the UAW, and then I was going to do
Are
it
you
on
a member?
on the month. No, but
But our union forever.
Well, I'll tell you that the UAW. Was very helpful in our strike. They gave us money. They were very active. When we were we were at the printing plant Labor Day weekend, the first year, blocking the trucks from coming out. The UAW members were in the front line. They were in the front line. Cops were spraying pepper gas. They had shields and riot gear on. And it was the UAW members in the front line with picket signs that were pushing the cops back.
Wow.
It's pretty rough and tumble.
So labor's got to unite.
Yeah,
Whenever you tell
it
these-
was, it was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And UAW is always, the members understand unionism.
Yeah.
And the leadership, it is so disgraceful, and it realizes how systemic that corruption is, and what and it's funny, the money that is stolen by these people, and I saw it in D.C. There were two women who were president and vice president of the teachers union, and they raided one of their condos, the president's condo. She had fur coats that hadn't been unwrapped. She had TVs that were still in boxes, and it's like, what's the point? You're stealing all this money for stuff you don't even use.
Well, they
you
might have
don't
been
need.
fencing that stuff too. You never know.
I was gonna say, that's
Maybe.
That's
Or giving it out, going, yeah, you need a TV.
All right. Well,
I just want to say one thing.
Yes.
Do you remember the old Green Acres show? And every time Oliver would talk about the values of the soil,
I love
this
that
little,
show.
This little piccolo.
How Arnold Ziffel didn't get another
Yeah,
part
what-
is beyond me. He was typecast as a talking pig.
All right, kids,
would
that
play
was
in
a
the
show
background.
that was on back in the
Yeah.
60s.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
I know.
Sure.
And then it was on in reruns for a long time.
Yeah.
We need Solidarity Forever played on the piccolo
Well,
to play behind when he goes off on these talks about like the good old days of strike. We can play it in the background.
Speaking of the good old days, and you brought up old TV, I forgot. Ellen and I talked about this yesterday. Apparently, there's a reboot of Hogan's Heroes in the works.
Another
boy,
great
it's-
show. That was a great show.
All
My
right,
father,
so how do we
being a
feel about
Holocaust
comedies about
survivor,
Nazis?
we would watch that together, and I think he enjoyed the idea that the Germans look stupid.
Well, like I said, is that the best way to get rid of the Nazis? Is just to laugh at them? I think it
may
might
be.
be. Just like, oh my God, you're an idiot.
Right, I
That's
think
kind
that
of
is
They
what
have
we
to
do.
update it though. They have to put like Mitch McConnell in the role of Sergeant Schultz. You know, I know nothing.
nothing.
I know nothing.
You know, who's
Hey,
going to play
Moscow
Clank?
Mitch. Moscow Mitch had a rough week.
Yeah, I know.
Hogan dismissed.
Call out to God. Call out to the
Hogan.
book holder. I love that.
We are just having segues all over the place because I wanted to
Reminiscing.
Mitch McConnell changed his mind, decides he's going to put several $1 million into actually combating election interference this time around. Apparently, he did not like being called Moscow Mitch. It got to him.
Wow.
It got to him.
I like that.
What about
label.
Massacre
That just
Mitch?
happened yesterday.
Let's have another
Okay.
appellation.
$225 million is going to be steered towards
Can we give him a
combating election
Russian
interference.
name like Mikhail? So Moscow.
What's a good name for
Moscow
Trump?
Mikhail.
What is Mitchell?
McConnell.
in Russian?
Mikhail.
Mikhail.
Well, Mikhail is Michael, and that's probably about as close as you're going to get. So it's
Mitchell.
like, yeah, it's like
I don't,
it's
my
like
Russian accent's not very good. so-
Mikhail McConnell.
That's right. That's right.
McConnellsky.
Well, when is he going to move on gun control? That's why Massacre Mitch. There's got to be someone to get
Massacre
him
Mitch.
because
Oh,
it
God,
is
yeah.
just
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a good one.
Interestingly enough,
that's an obscenity. You know,
you mentioned
is.
guns now. Colts announced that they are suspending production of civilian AR-15s for a while. They said they're going to concentrate on making weapons for the military because they feel there are already enough of them out there available for sale.
A small step forward.
absolutely
Is it?
some
It
corporate
is.
consciousness. I mean,
This is how this issue is going to change. Is it has to come a little at a time. And once again, think about drunk driving, think about smoking, think about all of the things that used to be just something that happened that now we have a much stronger social disapproval of. And I think it's the
Right.
same with this.
Well, okay.
It'll take a while. I'm not
well,
saying it's
did Walmart do kind of a similar? Didn't they?
Yeah.
Didn't they decide we're not going to sell these because
and
the
some of
employees
these-
got so upset? And,
Right.
I
And
mean,
some of these stores are saying no more open carry. We don't want you guys bringing, your stuff in here. I don't care if it's legal. You keep it outside of our business. They're meeting these people on the grounds that a lot of conservatives tend to argue on, which is, business uber alles, and, we have, private enterprise always knows better. Well, okay, so Meijer and Walmart are
private
saying,
enterprise saying right. The
yeah, they're
market
saying
isn't.
don't come into our places
Right.
with these guns on your hips, and Colt is saying we're not making them anymore. It's like this is progress. It's
I
not
agree.
a victory,
It's
but
a start. It's a start. It's interesting. I was at a car dealership on Woodward and Royal Oak, and a guy walked in with a gun just on his side, and it was interesting how uptight people got, and everybody was
I
talking.
take it he wasn't a cop. There was no.
He
chance
was not
of
a
it.
cop.
Okay.
And everybody was talking about it, and you could see people commenting, and it made people. It was interesting how many
uncomfortable.
people were uncomfortable.
It is
with
uncomfortable.
It
But
is
he assumes
uncomfortable.
he's a good guy with a gun.
Yeah,
Right.
he's the good guy with
Right.
the gun in case there's a
Yeah.
mass shooting at
Because
the
we all
car.
can tell the difference when somebody walks into a place.
Yeah.
Well, that looks like a good guy with a gun. So I don't have to worry about
Well,
that. He's a bad guy with a gun.
I did a piece for ABC News on people at airports walking in, like in Atlanta airport. A guy walked in with the AK-47, and the officer came up to him and said, people were freaking out. There's a guy,
Right, with a
and
gun.
he said, and at the airport there, not in the unsecured area, you're allowed to walk around apparently with an AK-47.
And he was
And-
doing it to
and-
reinforce his rights, right?
and he
yeah.
was filming it, and the cop, and he told the cop, "You don't have a right to confront me." And the cop finally backed off, but people were freaking out. There's a guy walking through the airport.
Well,
with
and
the
what they need to do
AK-47,
is
and he
start
can do that.
pelting that guy with old Cinnabons or something like that. I mean,
The weapon of
it's
choice
like,
at the
it's
And
airport.
like-
there's
there
many
needs-
airports that allow you more than you would expect. Allow you to carry a gun. And some open carry, like down in Texas,
Right.
And it's insane. In Detroit, you can actually Metro Detroit.
Yeah.
you can carry a gun in the unsecured areas, but not open carry.
Do you know what would take care of a lot of these open carry cases very quickly? If black people started doing it seriously, I mean, no. Imagine seriously.
Right.
Imagine one of like
You're
the
right,
Black
you're
Panthers
right.
walking through Bloomfield Hills,
Right.
Strapped to the nines, and
Right.
No,
suddenly
you're right.
It would
I
be
have a
like,
feeling
it would be
people
like,
would change
oh
their
my
yeah.
God.
They
well,
may.
Yeah, right. Maybe this isn't such a good idea after all.
I interviewed a
lot
guy.
of the gun control measures that started taking place in the early 70s and late 60s were related directly to that.
I know.
mean,
I
it's like,
remember that.
Wait, everybody can arm themselves. Wait, except for you guys. No,
Yeah.
that doesn't work. I mean, it is scary.
For that story, I interviewed the former head of security for the Tel Aviv airport, which is like nobody
Right.
does
Yeah, nobody
security
gets in
better
there.
than that. And he was just saying how insane it is to let people carry guns around. He says that's the security should be addressing that issue, and you shouldn't be having anyone else
Right.
walking around with guns at the airport.
Meanwhile,
period.
the Speaker of the House of the Michigan House of Representatives tried to get aboard a plane in Petoskey with a loaded handgun
That's
in his
true.
carry-on.
Forgot it was there.
That was
Oh,
I
I always
forgot.
forget my loaded
I
weapons.
know.
Forgot,
I mean,
and they're
What?
like,
You
oh,
can't
it's
bring a
okay.
gun
You
on
can
the
just
plane?
go.
yeah,
I
because
check my cell phone, my wallet. Oh, I got my gun. I'm sorry. My bad.
Imagine
okay.
feeling so unsafe that you have to walk around Petoskey, Michigan.
Right.
We got about.
I'm sorry.
We got about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Well, Petoskey is very dangerous.
I know, it's
The
such a
mean streets-
dangerous
The mean
city,
streets
man.
of Petoskey.
Jeez.
Got about 5 minutes left. I want to get to a couple things. Our neighbors to the south are having their own
Which one
political
is that?
problem. That would be Canada. Justin Trudeau.
Like in Ohio.
Justin Trudeau caught in pictures wearing brown face, as they call it, but also admitted to maybe wearing blackface at some point. I don't know how many times. Apparently, he is one of these guys that likes to dress up in costumes.
And he
but it's
goes all the way.
This may cost him his
It could.
his seat.
I know.
And
That's
he's in real trouble. At what point do people recognize that
Again,
this is a
though,
bad idea? He's
can
younger
I-
than I am. I've known for my
Wasn't
entire
this like
life.
in
you don't do this.
2001? What's this like? This was a
2001.
bit ago, though, right? It was a long time ago. I mean, social norms and mores do change. What people do 20 years ago or 30 years ago, even if they're inappropriate, becomes so more pronounced now that
Canada-
it gets somewhat unfair. I mean, I think it's
I'm
difficult.
curious.
Canada is a different country too, but can I just say one thing?
Yes.
It
Yes, you may.
applies to
No.
what happened with because I'm going to link
Stop.
it to something else that happened.
Okay.
The Brett Kavanaugh story.
Yeah.
Okay. What you did when you were young when you're young and foolish, you do young and foolish things. Everyone knows this. It's how you respond when you are called out on them years later
Right.
that
I like
counts.
beer.
Yeah, and it's the difference between Justin Trudeau saying, yes, I did it, I'm horrified, I'm so sorry, blah, 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 and Kavanaugh saying, you're all liars. Beach Week, Ralph Week was talking about my friend Ralph.
We were
Exactly.
weightlifting,
I mean,
drinking beer.
yeah.
I like beer.
beer.
I still drink beer. Don't you,
The
Senator?
Devil's
What do you
Triangle
drink?
was a drinking game.
What
I
do you
mean,
drink,
know.
Senator? He's like, all right,
Yeah.
cabbie.
Yeah.
Like,
No, Trudeau's
take it
response
down
was
a notch.
mature,
Yes.
acknowledged. I hope it doesn't.
He
I hope that's
expressed-
not the
I
reason.
think it still may derail
may.
him.
I have a question. What do you think if Trump had been, if we had seen a picture like from 10 years ago of Trump with a brown face or
He has
whatever?
orange face. That's
Yeah.
so close.
Would it make any,
So
would it
close.
make
Said
any
the Oompa Loompas
difference?
are very
I don't
offended.
think so. This
No.
guy has done so many more horrible things previously and in office.
It'd be political correctness gone, to the nth degree from his viewpoint,
Yeah.
right? It's a joke. Everybody knew it was a joke.
Right.
It'd be Trump him. I mean,
What could he What can he do to really win?
That's
when
the
does it-
question.
Yes.
What can he do that'll break it?
All right, we
Right.
got a couple things I want to get to. I want to end on a positive note, but we're going to start this one first. And Michigan State obviously has had a real problem with athletes.
Here's
dealing
a
with
positive
athletes,
news.
sexual assault problems on campus. There was a deposition taken of a former Michigan State assistant coach who basically said that 3 different coaches warned head coach Mark D'Antonio of the football team not to recruit this kid from Indiana who had had a history of sexual assault. And lo and behold, he recruits him, gets him on the team because he wants to restock the defense. This guy raped somebody in East Lansing.
Right.
Wow. Who could have
And it
predicted
was
that?
his roommate's girlfriend or his
Oh.
teammate's girlfriend or something
Right.
like that. Gets caught. But 3 coaches said, do not recruit this kid. He is bad news.
Right.
And he said he blew it off and recruited him anyway. And so just another example of Michigan State having a really, really bad time dealing with this. And
Tone
big-time
deaf.
athletics,
Totally tone deaf.
big-time athletics, obviously there's a real problem here. I mean, California's looking to, basically outlaw the NCAA so they can fix things over there about what's going on. But it seems that at big universities across the country, and I like college football as much as anybody, but the priorities are so out of whack right now.
Well, D'Antonio's interest is just winning, right? I mean, it should be more than that, but that's clearly what it is. It's just winning and just stocking with talent. And if you're there, I mean, I look at the pros too. It's the same type of philosophy. When do you decide that a player brings too much baggage and reflects too poorly on you, but has remarkable talent? Kareem Hunt, Tariq Hill. There's a lot of players who are talented who will get passes. I mean, I think it's a real hard question.
Do the fans and sports writers, when they're critiquing a coach's performance, say, well, they only went 50% last season, but man, everybody graduated.
Right, they're great guys.
No.
And the answer is no. You're going to get fired.
And they're young men.
You got to get to a bowl game.
Losing.
Right.
When your team's losing. Hey,
but
I got a lot of Notre Dame fans when they were really down in the dumps for a few years, and they're like, hey, but we graduated 100% of our players.
And nobody was arrested.
The question is, what's the consequence for D'Antonio? I mean, do they fire him?
No.
Do they reprimand him?
I don't know.
What is the?
This is one of those things that he took this guy on as a project, and obviously it didn't work.
Right.
He's not on the team anymore. But this is a kid who was basically banned from even setting foot on his high school campus his senior year because of the problems that he had there. So obviously there were some serious red flags. 3 of his coaches said, "Don't get this guy," and he took him anyway, and this happened. Which, again, just another example of the priorities being out of whack. Michigan State's got some stuff to answer for. They just do.
Yeah.
All right, so I do want to end on one good thing. If anybody is downtown today, at 4 o'clock, there's going to be a welcome home party for the Detroit Youth Choir kids who came in second place on America's Got Talent.
Wow.
They were fun to watch, and I don't watch that program, but I did tune in a little bit later to see those kids and how well they did. Everybody seemed to love them. They seemed like they were having a great time.
It's a great story.
I interviewed I interviewed the director years ago when they were just getting started, and just so glad to see them do well, and a good story about the city of Detroit.
And Kyle Sammy, who's on our restaurant show, was involved.
Exactly.
He's been out there. So.
And that was great. But that's happening at Campus Martius today, and I have a feeling there'll be some music and much rejoicing.
All right.
And
so
we'll be
that's
there.
happening today.
Someone will be there.
4 o'clock this afternoon. So if you're
Choirs are great.
downtown, get out of work a little early. Go welcome them home because they did represent the city very, very well, and we always love to see that. All right, that's going to wrap up the week that was this week. I'm Craig. Nancy, thank you. Joel Sklar, thank you for coming back.
I love
Allan,
being here.
Lengel, we appreciate
Thanks
it. Nancy
very much.
Derringer, I should probably put your last name in there too. Michael Lucido engineered our broadcast. Quick reminder,
Yay,
check out
Michael.
Deadline TV. We have a new show checking out the Turkey Place.
Turkey Grill.
Turkey Grill up
which,
there on Woodward and Grand
I've
Boulevard.
tried
Detroit-
that place 1,000 times and never
Detroit
stepped in.
Digest. I mean, the turkey bites are pretty amazing. They're these chunks of turkey that are deep fried and then rolled in a Cajun spice, and then you have a dipping sauce.
Hey, and I need to let people
it's
know
pretty amazing.
we are not getting anything from these people. We actually
Right.
pay for the food for
We
the
did
show
pay
that
for
we
the
do.
food.
So,
By the way, our bill at the White Castle was $85 for food. Which
4,000.
Yeah.
What you guys get?
we
Every
ran up
day is
quite a bill there.
Thanksgiving at the Turkey Grill.
well,
yeah,
So-
that's exactly right. I could eat turkey every day. So anyway,
But it's a cool place. I mean, it is a place that so many people drive by. If
I
you
drive
down
by.
Woodward.
I do every day
And
to
you
get downtown.
never think of go. A lot of people never think of going in there, but I, started going in there, and I thought, wow, this is pretty
tasty.
pretty cool.
Well, it looks good.
Lengel's a big fan of poultry. So.
Lengel's good.
Well,
big fan
I
of food.
don't eat a
Food in
lot of
general.
poultry. Let me clarify.
Well, but you don't eat a lot of red meat either.
I don't
All right,
eat a
guess
lot of
what?
red
We
meat.
need to leave now, everybody. We can have this discussion offline if you
Right.
like, or you can sit here and keep watching and hear us hash out
For our
whether or
next
not.
show called Noshing.
That's right. That's right. Anyways, check it out. It's on
Anything that you
DeadlineDetroit.com.
Mac.
Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it very much. Appreciate the comments that were coming in during the show as well. Feel free to do that anytime you like. I always love your feedback. Have a great weekend. It is gorgeous out today. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
And drive home safely.
There it is.
I'm going to stop at the Turkey Grill. I'm in.
Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state.